Well, hello. It's about time. Come in, sit yourselves down. Welcome to the Shakey Sonnet Show. We're here in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section in an unnamed local library which may or may not have some lions couchant prowling around the premises or just sat couchanting up on the stairway. And yes, it is about time. Sonnet 12 is about time. But also, it's about time we have a really good sonnet. It's sad, it's haunting, it's beautiful, it makes sense, and it just sounds really good. It's a good, solid poem, a great sonnet. And after last week's Sonnet 11, we can only rejoice by getting up in our best gear as if we're going to be coronated. Maybe we'll be coronated the drag princess of the remainders room. Doesn't have quite the ring to it as some other titles do, but let's proceed. Let's go straight into the sonnets, the Sonnet 12. And again, I'm going to plug my Penguin Sonnets collection because this week in Sonnet 12, one of the best sonnets we've encountered, there's again a discrepancy between what's printed in the Signet Classic version and other versions throughout the world and what's in the Penguin version, which hews much more closely to what all the experts believe is right. And I say that based on the fact that I happen to agree with the experts. Isn't that a coincidence? Now, but so the Signet Classic, I'll be looking at this today because I've marked it all up. I don't know if you can see all that. I kind of don't mind marking it up as much. But in the fourth line, there's already a problem. In this version, it says, and sable curls are silvered or with white. But in fact, it should be all silvered or with white. And if you want to read more about the editorial changes throughout history, you can go ahead and do that. But for me, for now, for us, it's all silvered or with white. So let me read through it. I'll substitute the all when I come to the R in here, and you'll see what I mean. Sonnet 12. When I do, I'm going to put this down to the side here because it's simply in my way. I'm going to also arrange my notes a little bit so that we can get down to the nitty-gritty when it comes time. Sonnet 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white, when lofty trees I see, barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green, all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly beard. Then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow. And nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defense, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence. Well, isn't that a lovely little sad poem to stir the icy cockles of any Goth's heart? Let's go through and just talk about what it's saying first, and then I'll talk about as much as I can, because there's so much in here to celebrate that I don't know how much time it will take. I'll try to truncate it as much as possible. But let's go through simple sense meanings. When I do count the clock that tells the time. Well, that's pretty obvious. You can count the hours, you can count the clock, even if it's a sundial, you can still count the hours as the time goes by. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and listen to that tick, tick, tick as we go along. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, and brave just means splendid or brilliant, the brave day sunk in hideous night. When I behold the violet past prime, a flower that's about to die, a violet that's about to die, and sable curls, all silvered o'er with white. Imagine if I ever grew old, which of course I won't. I'm about 5,000 years old already, so I don't have one gray hair yet. But if all my sable curls were silvered o'er with white, that would be a product of time working its revenge on me. When lofty trees I see, barren of leaves, so trees that were once covered with leaves are now bare. When lofty trees I see, barren of leaves, which erst, which means beforehand, erstwhile, beforehand, which beforehand from heat did canopy the herd. So you can imagine trees with this big plush layer of leaves that serves as a canopy or a protection over the animals that go beneath it and keeps them nice and cool out of the too toasty sun. When lofty trees I see barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green, all girded up in sheaves. Summer's green, obviously the green leaves of summer. Girded simply means bound into a like a stack and then put a ring around it like a girdle. Girded up in sheaves. And if you've ever seen paintings, or if you've actually ever been on a farm and seen sheaves of wheat that are bound together in the middle, you'll know what that's all about. Summer's green, all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly beard. Borne, meaning carried, on the bier, which is a carriage that carries things. It could carry sheaves of wheat, or it could carry a dead body, for instance. It's a funeral type of vehicle as well. Borne on the bier with white and bristly beard, so as if it's a grizzled gray man, but also as if they're sheaves that have been snowed upon because winter is here. After all of this, these first two quatrains, after all of this, after seeing all of this, the way that time works, the way that time passes, the way that people grow old and all people grow old, then of thy beauty do I question make. I look at you and I see how beautiful you are, and I have to ask myself, is it even real? Is it possible that this beauty could also be subject to time and grow old and die? Then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go. Oh, I mean, you know what that must be like, to look in someone's face and think that, well, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 5,000 years from now, this person might die, and there'll be no more. Time stands still for no man. Because since sweets and beauties, sweets such as a sweet thing such as you, beauties such as you, do themselves forsake. I may be young and gorgeous now, but I'll forsake this former inhabitation and slough off my beautiful pearly skin and gather wrinkles and crawl into the grave and die one day. And so will you. Sweets and beauties do themselves forsake and die as fast as they see others grow. The clock goes forward, we all grow older. You're beautiful now. it won't last forever. As we're sitting here talking, time goes by. You're watching me grow old right now. And nothing against time's scythe, time with a capital T, time personified, nothing against time's scythe. A scythe is a big sickle that cuts down sheaves of wheat or tall grass or people's lives. Nothing against time's scythe can make defense, save, except for, save breed. And we all, by Sonnet 12, we all know what breed means by now, I'm sure. Save breed, to brave him, to brave time, to stand your ground against time. The only way that you can defend yourself against time is to breed, to brave him when he takes thee hence. When you're gone in the grave, you'll still have your progeny to carry on your beauty and genes and everything. Now, where to begin with this? Once again, in Elaine Scarry's On Beauty and Being Just, she states that beauty takes place in the particular. And if you contrast Sonnet 12 with Sonnet 11, Sonnet 11 we have all these generalities and abstractions. Wisdom, beauty, increase. Folly, age, cold decay. Harsh, featureless, rude, best endowed. The only concrete noun that we really have in Sonnet 11 is blood, which can stand in for semen as well, because there is that impregnation quatrain at the beginning. But that's about it. You don't get a sense of who anybody is or what's going on. In Sonnet 12, it comes alive with concrete nouns. First of all, we've got all those colors. We've got sable, the black hair, silver, white, green, violet, the violet of the violet, violet. We have nouns. We have curls, we have the herd, we have clock, we have the violet, violet, that's turning violet. We have trees, leaves, the beer, and we've got that wonderful time's scythe, which is just a wonderful sounding word, and it's just tremendously effective in that spot right there. And add to that, we've got an I. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and it's not just an I do this for the sake of me. It's not some sort of weird, creepy, I think you're great, do this for me. There's a sadness here, and there's vulnerability, and you get the sense. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and in line 3, when I behold the violet past prime, when lofty trees I see, barren of leaves, then of thy beauty do I question make. This is an I that is a tremendously feeling I. It's a very emotional poem, and it's all this narrator describing the sadness of the idea of time going by. And then when finally we get to the object of the sonnet, thou, then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go. We have this connection between the I and the thou, which is really quite poignant, and it really is an emotionally satisfying poem, because it's not just breed, because who cares? So, breed, you'll carry on your line, but I'm witnessing all this sadness in the world as time goes by, and I can't believe that you're going to be caught up in it, and you don't have to be, but you will be, and the only thing that you can do is to perhaps have a child and carry on. Excuse the interns or apparently the Sonnetarium is alive with all kinds of deliveries and new neighbors. But let's go to sounds. Fun with phonetics, we'll call this section. But before we get to fun with phonetics, I'll talk about this book, Mary Oliver, A Poetry Handbook. There's a section in here on sound. She doesn't go into the detail that I'll be going into in terms of the phonetic names of things, but she talks about the way sounds inform a poem and the ways that it can inform your reading of a poem or your writing of a poem if that's your thing. The chapter is called Sound, and it's really quite wonderful. If you get a chance, pick up this book or at least stop by your local library, and if there's a lion couchant or two, say hey, if you can find me. But there's a section called Sound. She does this lovely reading of Robert Frost's Walking Through Woods on a Snowy Evening. That's just, it was one of those moments that really opened my eyes to poetry and the possibilities of the written word and the way that you can approach poetry. So, Mary Oliver. Now, phonetics, I'll give you a couple of terms that you just describe simple things that you might begin paying attention to in everything that you read, not just in poetry, not just in Shakespeare, but in your prose things as well, because the English language is made up of sounds, and sounds convey meaning whether they mean to or not. Some sounds are good together and some sounds are bad together, and so far Shakespeare's done pretty well. We've learned about the rhymes, we've learned about the rhythm, but let's talk a little bit about a few terms briefly in phonetics. There are sounds like the S's, S, and the SH and the CH and the X's. Those are called sibilant sounds. Then there are the plosives, like the B and the D and the hard G and the T and the K. These have sort of an explosive sound to them. Then there are the liquids, like the L and the R sound, like L, that just roll off your tongue. And then there are the fricatives, like the TH in the and the TH, well, the TH in theater, so the and the th, both are fricatives. There's also voiceless glottal fricatives, like the H, which is also an aspirate. And then there are the nasals, like the M and the N sounds. Now, is it necessary that you know all of these words? No, it is not. But are they fun to say at a party when you're in a conversation attempting to cozy up to a brand new beau? Yes, they are. One of my favorite conversations goes something like fricative, 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 plosive, liquid, sibilant. So, but tick-tock, time is running out. Let's get to the sounds of Sonnet 12 and see if there are any nice fricatives in here that can help us along in our way. The very beginning line has all these plosives, and I won't go on with the terminology, but I'll just point out the things that we might think about when we're reading a poem. When I do count the clock that tells the time, that's that tick, 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 this hard C of the count, the T at the end of count, the clock, the C at the beginning and the CK at the end. That T, another T entails the time. Right there, it's just tick-tock, 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 and it's almost like a clock in the way that it sounds. And see the brave day sunk in hideous night. Now, if you look at the first quatrain, you'll notice that the first line and the third line and the second line and the fourth line all rhyme with the long I sound, which is a very light sounding sound. It's different from, for instance, a long O. So I's and E's, they're quite smooth and they glide, whereas an O or an oo, those are kind of like moany, groany sounds that give a different kind of sense, a sense of sadness. And there are none of those in this first quatrain. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white. And then in the second quatrain, there are all those long E sounds, long E's and ER sounds. The R softens the E as it goes. The trees, the sea, the leaves, heat, canopy, the herd, ER. It gives a sense of fleetness to the poem as we go along. Besides the fact that it's completely comprehensible, it gives a sense of time moving on seamlessly almost. Summer's green, all girded up in sheaves, born on the bier with white and bristly beard. And that line in particular, with all the bees born on the bier with bright and bristly beard, it gives, because it is, the bee does have sort of a hard stop to it, born on the bier with white and bristly beard. So you get the sense orally, A-U-R, orally, of sort of an ominous march toward the grave with those bees. Then of thy beauty do I question make, and here we get the long A's and the O's that I was talking about earlier. These a little bit more mournful, even more mournful than the fleetness of the I's and the E's. Then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go. There's that long O. And you get this creeping sadness that is brought to a point. Sweets and beauties do themselves forsake and die as fast as they see others grow. And even though grow is a positive sounding word, it has that moaning, groaning, mooning, spooning sound to it that tampons any sort of lightness of mood that might be in there. And then, and nothing 'gainst time's scythe, and nothing, the hard G at the end of nothing. And then 'gainst is, it's not against, it's nothing, hard G, 'gainst, hard G. You get this sense of cessation right there, and nothing 'gainst time's scythe. And that wonderful time's scythe. Time begins with that hard tick of the T, and it goes down through the M, and the scythe with the S at the beginning glides through to the TH, time's scythe. It's like the word scissors is a similar thing. It begins with the S sound. It's almost onomatopoeic. Time's scythe. And nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defense, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence. And here we have another monosyllabic ending of the poem. Save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence. All of those are single syllables. It completes that sense of marching to the grave, and it's so beautifully rendered. It just gives this whole, it even adds more to the vulnerability between the I and the thou that are communicating in this, and it gives a sense of slowness that makes the plaint even more effective, peculiarly effective. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Now, I don't know how this might fit into the idea of Shakespeare writing to a young person, asking them to procreate, but I would imagine this comes even closer to a lover talking to another lover, heterosexual, in the sense that, we should make babies, that kind of a plaint. sort of the last ditch effort, or you know, that beautiful when you meet your soulmate and you realize that you love one another and you say, we really should get together and we belong together and we should make the world a better place by bringing the world another one of you. I could imagine that type of thing, so that any of the lovers that we see in any of Shakespeare's plays, that could take place in there. Or I could see it, for instance, from Prospero to Miranda in The Tempest. There's that wonderful section when, at the end, when Miranda is getting married and then Prospero breaks everything off and he says, he has his wonderful soliloquy, and it's kind of a strange thing because everything's going on and there's celebration, and then he breaks it off because he's startled by the fact that everything is coming to an end and his time is coming to an end. And I could see this as being the sonnet that's going through his brain at that moment when he breaks everything off and says, our revels now are ended. It goes into that beautiful speech. So these are the possibilities I see for this sonnet. Thank Shakespeare that we've finally gotten to a sonnet we can really praise fully and completely and with full hearts and minds. It's a wonderful sonnet, and probably the first that we've encountered that really rises to the stature of Shakespeare as we know it. We have more to go, some of which are very, very good. This is the first really good one. You know that a mind that can produce this. And that's the other thing. Do you think that Shakespeare actually sat down and said, oh, I'll have to put these S's in and these T's in and these D's in and these CK's in? Probably not. But the way that language works is that sounds suggest other sounds, and as we're going along, as a poet is going along, certain things click into place, and these things clicked into place for sure for Shakespeare in this poem. How much of it was intentional, I can't say, you can't say. We can just be thankful that it happened and that we've got it now to read at our leisure. So, go out into the world, pay attention to the things that you hear, pay attention to the sounds that you hear, pay attention to the things people say, and always question what's real and what's not. But pay attention to the world because it is full of wonder, and you know it now. And Sonnet 12 is one of those wonders. Until we meet again next time for Sonnet 13, I'm Tootight Lautrec, and this has been the Shakey Sonnet Show. Mwah.